On behalf of TV Tacoma and the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, welcome. I'm Liz Kernitz-Thurlow, and I will be moderating this forum for Tacoma City Council At-Large Position 6. The at-large means that they represent and will be voted on by all the voters of Tacoma. We have 5 area districts, each represented by a council member, and residents of those districts vote for them, and 3 at-large seats plus a mayor who are elected by all Tacoma voters. Thanks to the candidates, Kiara Daniels and Brett Johnson, for being here, and to TV Tacoma for presenting these forums. The candidates have agreed to our ground rules, which state, among other things, that they will not discuss each other in their answers. Do you both agree?
Yes.
The general election is Tuesday, November 2nd. If you are not yet a registered voter, you may do so at the auditor's office through Election Day. Candidates have up to 2 minutes for opening statements, various times for questions, and 1 minute for closing statements. Our timekeeper is Susan Eidenschink. She will show you cards when you have 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and when it is time to stop, at which time you may finish a short sentence. And we only have a half an hour, so please answer as succinctly as you can. In ballot order, Kiara Daniels will give the first opening statement. After that, the order will rotate. Kiara Daniels.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kiara Daniels, and I'm running for position 6 on the Tacoma City Council. I was born and raised in Tacoma's Hilltop neighborhood, and I've earned a BA and an MPA from the Evergreen State College. I currently serve as the Business and Community Development Coordinator for SpaceWorks Tacoma, where I work to secure space and resources for Black businesses in the Hilltop Business District. Before holding this position, I worked in a variety of professional roles at Peace Community Center, Habitat for Humanity, and United Way of Pierce County. I've also served on several city boards and commissions. Today, I'm running for an at-large seat on the City Council because Tacoma is facing significant challenges and we need action now. In just the past few years, we've seen our home values rise by over 40% and our rents jump over 20%, leaving many of our neighbors rent burdened or without shelter. Since the start of the pandemic, we've lost over 200 of our members of our community to the pandemic, and we've had over 16,000 confirmed cases in Tacoma. Too often, we try to resolve our most pressing concerns related to housing, environmental justice, and public safety in silos without looking at ways to collaborate. And Tacoma needs a leader who understands the importance to service to others. And I am committed to finding creative and collaborative solutions to the problems we currently face. If elected, I would strive to help Tacoma become a more equitable city, promoting the core tenets of my campaign: healthy families, healthy neighborhoods, and a healthy economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett Johnson.
Thank you. Thanks for having us this morning. My name is Brett Johnson. I'm a nearly lifelong resident of Tacoma. My Tacoma story started at St. Joseph Hospital in 1982. My family lived in Tacoma's east side in the home that my great-grandparents immigrated to Germany from in 1929. My middle school years I spent in Tacoma's North End, where I attended St. Patrick's School, Bellarmine, for 3 years and graduated from Stadium in 2000. After high school, I went on to pursue a career as an air traffic controller, where I enlisted with the United States Air Force, became an air traffic controller. Following my enlistment, I joined the Federal Aviation Administration as an air traffic controller at Boise. And then I later moved on to another air traffic control opportunity as a contract air traffic controller for NATO in Afghanistan at Kandahar Air Base. I'm currently a local business owner. I'm a partner at Wayne and Flitch, located on 72nd and McKinley. We're an urban sawmill and custom wood shop where we ethically salvage a lot of trees that have come down in a number of your backyards or businesses or parking strips, things of that nature, and we put them to positive use in new projects. I'm running for council because I think my business background, my air traffic control experience, and the diversity in the places I've lived, South Florida, South Georgia, Hawaii, and a year in Afghanistan working with nations from all over the world, have prepared me to be an agent of change and unification to really drive for some positive policy that positively impacts all members of our community. I'd appreciate your vote in November. Brett Johnson, Tacoma City Council at Large, Position 6.
Thank you. Thank you both. Brett Johnson will answer the first question first. So whenever you've answered second, you will answer first on the next question. What is the most pressing need in Tacoma, and how do you plan to attack it? 90 seconds.
Good, thank you. So I think for me, the most pressing issue right now is public safety, which is a combination of law enforcement, crime, and things of that nature. We're seeing an explosive amount of homicides, property theft, things of this nature. I think one of our first steps in resolving that problem is working with the police department to modernize and adapt what their mission is and provide more resources so we can send the correct resources to respond to the correct calls, so that we can all start to restore our feeling of safety, both as residents and as people that are encountering our first responders. I think, as a commitment to my dedication for building partnerships for resolving issues, I've been endorsed by Tacoma Police Local 6, and I plan on working with them aggressively. I do think one of our first steps in City Hall to help retention and recruitment can be to work with the city attorney and possibly the attorney general if necessary to develop what I call our interpretation of the House bill that was recently enacted in July that law enforcement's struggling to interpret right now. I think it's really important as an employer to give guidelines to employees that give employees success to complete their job. And I think it's a responsibility of the city to make sure that we're deploying a police force that is compassionate, just, and maintaining public safety and equitably enforcing the law.
Thank you. Kiara Daniels.
I think we have a lot of issues, but I think that there actually end up being outcomes of kind of core issues that we have here. And I think that the core issue that we're dealing with is housing stability and affordability. And we've got to address that. We've got to address homelessness in order to get at housing stability. We've got to address affordability to get at stability. And I think that that will ultimately help our community safety and some of the other things that are stemming from that. We are also dealing with poverty that goes into that, and all of those things affect our climate and the other things that I'm sure we'll talk about today.
Thank you. Okay, COVID has changed so many things. People ill and dying, Zoom and webinars becoming a lifeline, businesses closing or changing, and unfortunately it continues. What is something which has come out of that, changed how we do things, which you think is good and should be kept, if there is anything? Kiara Daniels, you first.
That's a great
seconds
question.
if you need it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we don't get to see the silver lining of some of our hugest some of our kind of global tragedies. And I think one of the things that has come out of that is that we've learned as a city that the things that we thought we couldn't do in terms of engaging our community virtually, we figured out that we can do. And I think that, and I know that now that we have come to having virtual meetings, that we're engaging, we were seeing more engagement in our government than ever before. And I think that's really important. And I think that that should be something that continues into the future. I also think about ways that we spend dollars. We're spending more on our underrepresented businesses than ever. And these were things, and in housing, and these are things that we hadn't done before, that we couldn't find the money for. And so now we're seeing that we can get creative. We can do some of the things that we thought were impossible. And I look forward to keeping and sustaining those things that we have brought in.
Thank you. Brett Johnson.
Thank you. I think Zoom, which we're doing this morning, is certainly one of the, it's a double-edged sword, but I think a net as a positive for efficiency and actually reducing our requirement to physically be somewhere and giving us an ability to reduce our carbon emissions. So that's definitely a positive. I do think that the government on all levels finding a way to support business, which in turn supports families, has been pretty positive, and I hope we continue that energy and that success. And I think in general, I think we found that we can have a faster response time and a faster deployment time for all kinds of new policies. And I think we need to continue that energy as we start to tackle some of the issues in front of us.
Thank you. Okay, another 90-second question. And Brett Johnson will be first. Homelessness continues to be a huge issue. How do you plan to help Tacoma build more housing, find housing solutions for homeless people, get all people, students, elderly, mentally ill, the plain just out of luck, the help, services, and protection they need? And if you would, please include your views on home in Tacoma. And I know 90 seconds is not a lot of time, but go for it.
Sure. So that's a great question. And actually, one of the things that was one of the largest inspirations for me to run for office. For 11 years, I've operated my building on 72nd and McKinley as a business owner. And I've experienced a lot of the safety threats that have been posed by encampments, both for employee safety threats, customer safety threats, vandalism, theft, and the ensuing cleanup costs. And I've engaged a number of these people over the years and, you know, offered help, whether that be a job or a meal, whatever that may look like in that particular instance. And the needs are very broad and very, very different. And I think for me, the first place that we start in addressing that is in creating a sanctioned camping area or camping areas where we can start to centralize the location of individuals so that we can partner with nonprofits that are service providers. I was on a call with the Coalition in Homelessness a couple months ago, and I listened to some of the struggles, and one of the largest struggles was logistically caravanning around the city trying to locate people. So I think that's a big portion of centralizing the encampment location or locations based on need and resources, so that we can allow people access to resources and resources access to people. I also believe that Home in Tacoma, the intent's very good, but I think it's a little bit too far, too fast, and I think it needs some refinement. In fact, behind me is the former J. Martinac shipyard, and as an interrelated issue, there's jobs with that. Tacoma's struggled for the last 10 or 20 years in maintaining small working living wage employers like this, State Farm, DeVita, and we started to add them all up, and it starts to become the reason why we have such a low number of living wage jobs and a need for them within the city.
Thank you. Kiara Daniels.
Okay, I'm going to try to get it all in because I think that these are two separate issues that could use their own 90 seconds. But we know in Pierce County, there's over 12,000 people experiencing homelessness, and almost half of those are folks with children. And so we know that we've got to approach this a couple of different ways. We spend about $11 million a year right now on sheltering and stabilization, but we really got to we have to do more with funding. And we've also got to provide more permanent and transitional housing, because only 2% of the folks that are in our temporary places are making it to permanent shelter. We're also 49th least funded in the country for mental health, and I think that plays a huge part in exacerbating the issue. We know that rapid rehousing works, and we have an infrastructure set up to get people to where they need to go, but we don't have enough places for them to go. We've seen we need to invest in hotels, motels, safe parking sites. And there's many other ways we can get creative about that, but we've got to spend more dollars on it. And in terms of Home in Tacoma, I do support the proposal. It would rezone the areas of Tacoma to improve our density. And if we do it right, we will. If we do it right and we implement our full housing action strategy plan, we will have 6,000 new affordable units, and we'll preserve over 2,000 affordable units. And doing these things together makes Tacoma a more affordable place for everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tacoma recently cleaned out a homeless camp. We don't have enough places for all to go and services to offer. That's part of why there are homeless camps. Should the city be cleaning out camps when we don't have the services to offer all the residents? And what might be an answer to this difficult question? And you have a minute to tell us. Kiara Daniels.
Yeah, I think these are tough, right? Because it's really difficult to, what it feels like when we clean up is that we're criminalizing folks that don't have a place to go. So it's really important that we are quickly getting sites for people to go that are safe, that have the resources available. So anytime we clean up a place, we actually do have folks that come in and send people to the places where they can go that are safe to go. But we definitely need more of those places, and they need to be, they need to have the resources available for folks. So I don't think that there is a quick and easy answer to that, but if we're going to clean places up, we definitely have to have a coordinated effort and places for them to go, and that's going to take very quick work.
Thank you. Brett Johnson.
I also support having places to go, but as I just mentioned, I support that at least as a beginning place so we don't have to wait to stand up any more resources. The first step would be having a centralized encampment or sanctioned encampment location or locations. I think that there's a tremendous amount of safety threats for the actual campers involved in a number of these encampments. And I can only speak to the ones that I've been inside of, but I've been inside of a number of them. I'm sure different conditions exist in different encampments, but I know there are a lot of people. There's trafficking happening in a lot of them. There's violence between camping members, and I think getting these encampments into centralized locations where we can have first responders and our partners to begin getting other resources for mental and substance abuse resources, I think is absolutely the first step to at least stem the tide and start to make some kind of help other than wondering what we're going to do.
Thank you. Okay, Brett Johnson, first 1 minute. The climate crisis. How can and should Tacoma help combat climate change, and what will you do?
It's a good question. So I think obviously climate change is an incredibly important issue for us right now. And I think it's important that we find solutions that are effective and that they don't displace other portions of our community, whether that be job market, housing, businesses, whatever that looks like. I think right now, currently, Tacoma Power is looking to attract green carbon manufacturers. And I think that's a great place for us to start so we can transition off of fossil fuels. I think weatherization and home performance is a great place. As a previous weatherization contractor, I know that homes are one of the largest consumers of energy and the largest producers of carbon emissions, and they're the proverbial low-hanging fruit to make them more efficient, which in turn makes them more comfortable and makes them more safe. And I favor Energy Code as the first place to start in conjunction with green energy.
Thank you. PR Daniels.
Yeah. The single most important thing we can do to support our environment is to create affordable housing and living wage jobs where we live. We know that 74% of our community commutes over 28 minutes to get to work. And so we're putting out more emissions than necessary to do our day-to-day things. We have a climate action plan now, and it's up to our leaders and the folks that are on council to implement those things. And then we need to be investing in truly renewable energy and jobs. We need to expand our safe, convenient, and robust transportation system. And a lot of that is happening right now, but we've got to make sure that when decisions come up and the community gets involved or is able to be involved in those decisions, that we do provide funding for those, because that's the only way to get these things done. We've got to have 20-minute neighborhoods where we can walk and get to, or walk, bike, and use our public transportation to get around.
Thank you. Racism. This connects to housing, policing, jobs, and everyday life. How do you think we're doing in dealing with it? And what do you propose to help improve and equalize conditions for all? 90 seconds. PR Daniels.
The city has many plans to transform its systems as it is. And each of those systems is its own ecosystem. So we've got to be thinking about this not only from our personal standpoints, from who we hire, how we hire. We have to be thinking about equity in policy, equity in budgets, equity in resources. And right now, when we deploy resources and when we implement programs, we say that we want to be anti-racist, but we're really not even allowed to call out who we're putting resources for in terms of our underrepresented community. And so I think that becomes problematic. And what I've seen some of our brilliant folks doing is getting around that with creative ways by using things like zip codes and using other things to kind of get at that trying to get at being anti-racist and deploying and undoing our wrongs, right? And so we have to really be honest with ourselves, and we have to be open to being able to say, this is who we're trying to serve, and this is why, and this is what we've done in the past, and we have to fix that. And it starts really there. Then it goes to our staff, and then it goes to assuring that we have the budget and the funding to do all of these things.
Thank you. Brett Johnson.
So I think we've definitely got some good things underway. I think right now, depending on what community you're talking to, there's still some disparity between results and desire to be an agent of change to address that the issue of racism. I think for me personally, I think my company is just, while it is small, it's a good example of where I stand on diversity, equity, and inclusion, where I have an Asian American LGBTQ member of our staff, Latina American single mother. I have a woman in production. I have an African American student that we turned into a full-time employee. And I want to carry that leadership and the same experience that I experienced within the Air Force, which was by far the most diverse workforce that I've ever participated in, and people from all different diversities of ethnic, racial, economic, got together in support of one mission. And I think we can achieve that here in Tacoma because I think our citizens want better.
Thank you. This will be the last question, so Brett Johnson will answer it first. I mentioned policing in the racism question. How do you think our police training needs changing? If it does, are there changes you'd like to see in Tacoma's police force? What, how, why? How do we accomplish them? One
Sure.
minute.
So this is a great question, and another reason why I sought and got the endorsement of Tacoma Local 6 Police Department. I absolutely believe that there's a need for more training. There's a need for adapting the mission that we ask the police to do. In the last 20 years, we've asked them to handle a lot of things that police officers probably are not the right resource. The police department itself is ready to partake in that change and add a social worker component or a new tool as a responder to help address that issue. I was privileged about a month ago to go to what I call is a tech tool demonstration at police headquarters, where they demonstrated cloud software that starts with a 911 call and can go all the way down to the body camera, the taser, and we can track what types of calls somebody's been exposed on, what neighborhood. And I think all those things are necessary tools that we're not currently tracking. So there's no way to know when we're overexposing somebody to a certain type of situation. And I think that goes a long way in accidents happening, because I know I've seen similar activity from poor training and whatnot during my time in the Federal Aviation Administration.
Thank you. Kiara Daniels.
I think one of the key things that we can do is redefine what community safety looks like in Tacoma. And we need to do that in order to be able to collaborate effectively. We need to have a shared vision from the community that includes the police, recognizing that the police are not and should not be the only measure of safety in our community, right? That's a reactive approach and not really a preventative approach. And we need to be thinking about this holistically. Right now, we have 64 recommendations sitting from 21st century policing that we need to start making moves on. 34 of those have to do with redefining our use of force policies and rethinking about how we implement those. We need to be investing in our mental health resources, housing stability, overall poverty, because a lot of what we have is poverty and property crime. And we need to be thinking about investing in our youth and in our enrichment like we did as a response to the violence in the 90s. We've got a lot of work to do. And the great part about this is we already have the answers. And we've got to be thinking about, this is an inside job, and this is really gonna start from the top down. And we need to be thinking about collaboration really deeply when we think about this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now it's time for closing statements. You each have up to 1 minute, and Brett Johnson will make the first closing statement.
First, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to participate today, and thank you, Kara, for joining us as well. I'd just like to say that I'm running for Tacoma City Council because I think my resume has prepared me to be an effective member of the City Council and be a cooperative and driving member of getting some really positive and holistic policy enacted that gets positive results for all citizens, and to support businesses. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, the city has fallen behind a little bit in its support of business, and it contributes to our housing affordability, our living wage jobs, and our poverty situation. So there is no one lightning rod solution in any of this for me. It's a multi-pronged approach. It's going to require everybody. I'm ready to work with everybody, and I'd appreciate your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Kiara Daniels.
I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters and TV Tacoma for hosting this. It really has been an honor to be here. And with all the issues facing Tacoma on my mind, it's clear that the next 4 years will be particularly challenging for our city. We have so many reasons to be hopeful. We need folks who are ready to collaborate, ready to engage in hard conversations and take risks to ensure that we can thrive. We need to prioritize the needs and lived experiences of our underrepresented communities to make sure that we have a more equitable and inclusive place to live. I'd be honored to support you all, to represent you all for position 6 on Tacoma City Council this November. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for participating, answering our questions, and caring about our city. The candidates for Tacoma City Council at large position 6 are Brett Johnson and Kiara Daniels. Election day is Tuesday, November 2nd. Thank you for watching. Now, please make sure to vote.